Welcome back in here to KCTV 5 Plus on Behind the Story. I'm Katie Bird here with Zach Summers. A new Kansas House bill requires districts to ban cell phone use during the school day, and many students are having to hand over their phones before the first bell even rings. Zach, you actually found that schools are taking different approaches to this.
Yeah, essentially the state set the standard, but it's the districts who are essentially building very different systems to comply with the new law.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take it over to your special report.
We'll have to understand the impact cell phones have had on our young people.
When students arrive at Wyandotte High School this week, their cell phones won't be going to class with them.
We've established a two-step procedure.
This is the first school year under Kansas's new bell-to-bell cell phone policy. Phones must be off and stored, not just silenced, from the first bell to the last, including lunch and passing periods.
Our administrative team, along with a handful of our classified front office staff and a few other folks, we will manage collection of the cell phones at entry and at dismissal.
At Wyandotte High, students will turn in their phones when they arrive and get them back when the final bell rings. Principal Dr. Brian Gulliford says after registering their phones, students will store them in one of several new cell phone lockers installed across campus.
We want to make sure we're patient, we're flexible, but yet intentional.
Administrators expect a learning curve, so they won't be counting tardies the first week and are considering a staggered dismissal. If a student refuses to turn over their phone,
we'll handle most of that, all of that, largely on a case-by-case basis.
Of all the districts we reviewed, KCKPS is taking the most hands-on approach, spending $150,000 on those cell phone lockers for every middle and high school student in the district. Olathe and Basehor-Linwood also bought dedicated storage, but for most other districts, they're relying on existing lockers, backpacks, or the school office. The message from most districts: leave your phone at home or in your car. If students bring them, Shawnee Mission and Paola require them to be stored in student lockers, while Gardner-Edgerton uses lockers or classroom storage. Elementary students in KCKPS and Bonner Springs-Edwardsville must keep their phones in their backpacks. And in districts like DeSoto and Spring Hill, students can leave their phones in the school office if needed.
I know it'll be a big change for high schoolers.
Allison Brimblecom, a former teacher, has two students in the Shawnee Mission School District. She supports the law but worries districts without dedicated storage may struggle to enforce it consistently.
When you're giving kids the option, don't bring it, put it in your car, and putting it in your locker, that allows a lot of room for inconsistency.
She understands for parents, losing the ability to immediately reach their child will take some adjustment, but believes keeping phones out of students' hands will reduce distractions.
I think it's too much to expect developing brains to have to discipline themselves. You would never want to send your kid away to a summer camp and then just think, oh, they're just on their phone all day. I think we should have the same mindset with school.
Wanted something.
Back at Wyandotte High, Dr. Gulliford believes fewer distractions will lead to more engaged students.
So I'm anxious to see what lunch looks like. I'm really looking forward to that. Kids truly engaging with each other.
The real test comes when the school bell rings, and for the first time, the phones won't. There are exceptions to the law. It also restricts how teachers can communicate with students on social media. You can read your district's full policy on our website, kctv5.com. Zach Summers, KCTV5 News.
Zach, what initially inspired your special report on this?
Well, we knew the law was going to go into effect this school year. So after the World Cup, I'm part of our special projects team, so we're always looking, after the World Cup ended, we started to focus on, well, okay, what's next? And obviously back to school was next. So we started to look at important back to school stories. And this being a new law and really the state sort of leaving it to school districts as to how they will comply with the law, we found fascinating. So I just started to reach out to every Kansas school district within our coverage area, asking them about their plan, how they were going to enact it, how they were going to comply with the law. And so over, a month's span, I collected information from over a dozen districts in our viewing area. And then we went through that information and compiled the report that we got. We were very grateful to KCKPS because of all the districts in our viewing area. They have the most hands-on approach. Again, we talk about the law basically sets the standard that phones have to be inaccessible, not simply silent or out of sight during the school day. They cannot have access to these phones, and that includes during passing periods or lunch. And what we were finding is a lot of school districts are sort of taking a laxed approach, if you will, where they're asking students to either leave it in their car or leave it in their lockers, or in the case of a lot of elementary schools, leave it in their backpacks. But KCKPS really, when talking with them, they said, well, we want to make sure we are in full compliance with the law. So they made this huge investment where they spent over $150,000 for those lockers that you saw for every middle and high school student in the district. And I remember when talking with Dr. G over at Wyandotte High School, he was telling me how the process would work, but it was hard to visualize because obviously school hadn't started when we met with them, a couple of weeks before, obviously last week when school started. But we've seen the social videos since, how this works. I mean, you essentially have dozens of these lockers at different entry points to the school where students, they come in, they give the phone to the administrators who then put it in an assigned slot, and these lockers are on carts essentially, and then they're stored away in a safe place until the end of the day. But even with KCKPS, and I remember talking with our assistant news director about this. I said, we will definitely need to follow up with the district just to, talk about how it's working, whether that's at arrival or dismissal. I mean, you think about thousands of students. There's 2,000 students at Wyandotte High alone, having to hand over their phones in the mornings and then get them back at night or at the end of the school day. There's possibly going to be some bottlenecking that happens in trying to get those phones and give them back to students. But even outside of KCKPS, there's the conversation, and we heard the parent mention it, consistency. How do we make sure that this is consistent across the board? And, it's really left on the school districts to try to enforce that consistency. But then, the flip side of that argument is, okay, well, it costs money and it requires staff. And we've seen the investment that KCKPS is doing. I think it'll be fascinating to see how other school districts start to maybe change how they are handling this, or maybe look at how other districts like KCPES is doing it and seeing if they can maybe implement that into their districts.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see how different districts are taking these approaches. Another concern at top of many parents' minds is safety. In the case of an emergency, how will they reach their student?
Well, schools must provide a phone or designated device for students to contact their parents. And that can happen between passing periods, at lunch. Now, the question, though, becomes, can a student quickly reach a parent in that short amount of time, whether it be through lunch or a passing period, if it's urgent, if they're sick? I mean, this, again, is the first year that we're seeing this law in place. So in a lot of ways, it's a lot of trial and error. What's working, what's not working, what do we need to do to adjust, and what do we need to do to make sure that we're in full compliance with the law? I think what's also going to be important for school districts is they are really going to have to make sure that their emergency alert systems are in place and that they are working properly. That way, if students don't have access to their phones, then these districts, it's really going to be incumbent upon them to make sure that their alert systems are working so parents could be notified in case of an emergency, because we all know in the world we live in now, school safety is always top of mind for every parent.
Yeah, you bring up so many good points there, Zach. Now, for the schools that are having students simply leave their phone in their locker, there comes a liability question there.
Well, yes, and this is what's so important to remember about the law. The law basically says, and I'm just going to read it here, districts, employees, and agents of the district are not liable for damage to the phone or if this phone is stolen or lost while on school property. So obviously there are districts where we've seen some of the safeguards they have in place, case in point, KCKPS with the stored lockers. But yeah, the schools are basically absolved of any liability. And so that raises, other concerns, and because phones aren't cheap. So that's why a lot of schools are saying, a lot of districts are saying, leave it at home. Don't even bring it to school. But then, the other suggestion is to leave it in your car. Well, the problem is not every student has a car in high school. So, but the big takeaway about what you just mentioned is, yeah, if the phone is stolen, lost, or broken while in the care of the district or the school, sorry. I mean, that's the simplest way to say it. Is it unfortunate? Yeah, for the student and the family, but that's the way the law was written, and that's what legislators passed.
Yeah, speaking of that law, what else does it state, Zach?
Well, the other piece of the law has to do with how employees interact with students on social media. They cannot privately or directly communicate with students through social media for official school purposes. So teachers and sponsors, they also can't require student, or rather social media use for assignments or extracurricular activities. Now, this could, of course, change how coaches, clubs, and teachers and other groups, they chat on social apps. When I was in high school 20 years ago, social media was just sort of taking off. So there wasn't a lot of communication between student and teacher, but as social media has become more and more a part of our lives, it sounds like that's become more and more part of the routine at schools. Well, this law basically says no more of that.
Yeah,
and we even saw it. I can't think of the school district off the top of my head. I want to say it's either Blue Valley or Shawnee Mission. Maybe it was Blue Valley. They posted about their social media policy. They've gone so far as to say that when parents and students interact on their social media pages regarding something related to the school district, that the school district will not engage in those conversations anymore in order to comply with the new state law that prevents school employees and teachers from communicating with students in a school capacity.
Yeah, and when it comes to that first bell to last bell cell phone ban, are there any exceptions to that aspect?
Yes, I mentioned it in the story. Students with IEP 504 plans, or if their doctor has approved the use of a phone for medical purposes, those are the exception. But there has to be the exception is they can have it if there's no other reasonable alternative. So the exemptions are very limited.
Zach, so much goes into this Kansas cell phone ban in public schools. We appreciate you joining us today here on Behind the Story to break down your special report.
Absolutely.
All right, welcome back in here to KCTV 5 Plus. I'm Katie Bird. Going to break down some local headlines here on your Friday afternoon. Of course, we've been tracking recovery efforts in Kansas City, Kansas after devastating storms. A big part of getting back to normal in KCK is, of course, getting students back to class, especially when the school year has just begun. But for some schools, it's been easier than others. Now, most have returned to class, but Wellborn Elementary is the exception. They're staying closed for now, but for many families in the district, the bigger question is much simpler. When will the power finally come back on? I mean, some residents have been waiting for more than 2 days, and officials say full restoration, well, that could still be days away. Nearly 7,000 people are still without power. That was as of this morning, as according to BPU's power outage map. Now, one thing the storms haven't done is break up the community. I want to take it to KCTV5's Janae Hancock with more.
Is still pretty significant on this Friday morning. I'm going to move out of the way so you can see just a glimpse of what we are seeing in this area. And the neighbors we have spoken to say that checking on their neighbors is not optional. It is just what they do. And that is what's carried them through the last few days. But the people living it say it isn't enough on its own. The instant response from the community was to check in on one another. Now, days later, families on Russell Street, they are still without power, still without air conditioning, and still wondering if the food in their fridge is even safe. So if you have storm damage or storm debris, you are being urged to call 311 so that your street can be added to the emergency management's list. And we do have a full list of resources on our website, kctv5.com right now. Here in Wyandotte County, Janae Hancock, KCTV5 News.
And a former Catholic high school leader is now permanently barred from ever working with kids again. The Archdiocese of Kansas City in Kansas, says ex-Bishop Miege president Phil Banowicz is crossed the line repeatedly, but this didn't happen overnight. Here is what to know. Miege's board first placed him on leave last June over safety concerns. Days later, new allegations surfaced involving a minor, and the Archdiocese restricted him from ministry entirely. Now, by August, he was out of a job. Now, an independent investigation spanning nearly 40 years of his career has led to a permanent ban. He has not been criminally charged. And if you shop in Waldo, police are looking for someone who broke into not one, not two, but several small businesses there this week. Owners hope that this surveillance video you see here on your screen and the suspect's distinctive outfit help crack the case. Officers say this thief smashed and ripped his way into 3 different stores in one night. And surveillance video shows him wearing Kelly green athletic pants, of course, this red hoodie with a distinctive front print. Now, the burglar hit City Barrel Pizza, Bramble and Stem, and Eclectics early Tuesday. Now, this isn't the first break-in at City Barrel, but the owner says it will not shut them down.
We have 30 people that work here, and one person is not going to shut us down or push us out of business.
Now, business owners are urging the shops to keep their security systems on. If you have any information, Kansas City Police is asking you to call the TIPS hotline. That is 816-474-TIPS, and you can remain anonymous. Want to take it next downtown? Crown Center is well on its way to becoming home to a brand new Royals ballpark. That's because the city council gave the green light yesterday, passing the financing for the team's nearly $2 billion, with a B dollar stadium project. The stadium will be paid for by the Royals, the state, and the city is pledging $600 million. Now, supporters called the project a once-in-a-generation investment for the city, but opposition was just as loud. You can see it here on your screen. Several residents and groups say the deal moved too fast with too little public input. The ballpark zoning authorization heads to full council here in a couple weeks on September 3rd. Speaking of our Kansas City Royals, you can actually catch them on our air tonight as they face off against the Detroit Tigers. First pitch is at 7:10 p.m. Always great when we air the games for free here on KCTV5.com. All right, guys. A new vending machine in Raytown won't cost you a dime. It could actually also save a life. Jackson County Public Health is installing its second blue box machine, stocked with free Narcan, fentanyl test strips, and first aid kits. It goes in today at Synergy One Lending. They're following a similar machine already up in Lee Summit, Missouri. Definitely a helpful addition to our community. Taking it next to the Kansas City Public Schools, it's the unofficial kickoff to a brand new school year. Students got to meet their new teachers this week and scope out their classrooms before the first day. Some schools actually got major upgrades over the summer thanks to the $474 million bond passed last year. One of those schools was Gladstone Elementary in northeast Kansas City. Now, KCTV5 reporter Chandler Watkins was there last night. His families got to see some of the renovations for the very first time.
Back to school night was a little different for Gladstone Elementary parents and students as they were able to meet the teachers as well as see some of the KCPS bond renovations that happened over the summer.
Good to see you all.
One by one, families filed into school to see what class their kids will be in and to meet their teachers. Before that, they held an orientation with the principal in the newly renovated cafeteria, thanks to the bond passed by Kansas Cityans last year.
The wonderful colors, the brand new concrete surfaces, the baffles in the cafeteria and the gym that make speaking in larger places so much better. I just love it.
It's changes the parents and students appreciate.
I thought it was a different place.
Looking at all the changes around the school, it's amazing. Just walking in, you can see the new paintings on the walls. I can't wait to see the auditorium.
While the new auditorium isn't quite finished yet, families were able to go into the gym right down the hall to stock up on clothes, backpacks, books, and much more before the first day of school on Monday. Reporting in Kansas City, Chandler Watkins, KCTV5 News.
Gladstone Elementary is just one of the 32 schools getting upgrades from the bond money. That includes the brand new King Empowerment Center. This will be an elementary school and an early childhood center. This is on track to be completed early next year. All right, and before we take it to a break, I want to take it out to the Shawnee Mission School District. Nicotine addiction is sending kids as young as middle school to the nurse's office. One metro district, Shawnee Mission, says its fight against vaping is actually paying off. KCTV5's Jordan Fremstad is showing us how this school district built an entire program around getting students off of nicotine.
The nationwide story on tobacco.
It's a societal problem.
Changes with time.
Teens aren't picking up the combustible cigarettes anymore.
But its harm holds the same consequences for children.
By the time that you're old enough to say, wow, I shouldn't have made that decision that I made, it's too late.
Teresa Dank-Schmoida serves as the student wellness specialist for Shawnee Mission School District. Teresa has helped create education material for staff and parents to help students stop this dangerous addiction. Teresa says some single vape devices are equal to 3,000 to 5,000 cigarettes of total nicotine.
I try to challenge adolescents or anyone to think about what that would look like if you were carrying around cigarettes.
3 years ago, Shawnee Mission Public Schools launched its Vape Awareness and Wellness Education Plan, using more than $700,000 from a legal settlement from the e-cigarette company Juul. In total, the district has 22 trained tobacco treatment specialists.
Ultimately, I want students to feel like they have someone at school that they can talk to if they need to, like someone that's not going to judge them, someone that's going to help them find a path to quit successfully. We can make it not cool to use those products.
In Overland Park, Jordan Fremstad, KCTV5 News.
Yeah, it's so important to talk about nicotine addiction, especially in schools. What an incredible work that they're doing there. All right, guys, we're going to take it to a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about teen gambling. It's a hidden danger. KCTV5's Sharon Chen walks us through it. Thanks for sticking with us here on KCTV5 Plus. Now, for years, we have warned kids about drugs, alcohol, and cigarettes. There is another addiction quietly taking hold. It's one that lives on the same device that your teens use to do homework, talk to their friends, and play their favorite games daily. KCTV5's Sharon Chen spent weeks investigating the alarming rise of teen gambling. And there is a surprising connection to the video games your kids play every single day.
He was 15 years old.
It's really hard to put a finger on it at times.
And Matthew Whitney had no idea he was already addicted.
Didn't necessarily view it as gambling.
It all started as a casual connection.
Like Texas Hold'em, playing poker with friends.
A small bet here and there.
It felt good.
Nothing serious.
There was a level of excitement there that came with that dopamine rush of quick money.
But it wasn't long before that rush became compulsive.
Online casinos, slot machines on your phone, sports betting. It was my sole focus.
And it nearly destroyed his life.
I was stealing money from my family, where my family wasn't able to find me for days on end. I was barely graduating.
Matthew's story is more common than most parents think. In fact, a new study by Common Sense Media found a third of boys between the ages of 11 and 17 have gambled in the past year. And researchers say it starts in video games with so-called loot boxes and skins.
You have a 1 in a million chance of getting this mythic item.
Nick Engstrom has spent 15 years inside the gaming world. He's the CEO of KC Game On, a Kansas City nonprofit dedicated to growing gaming and esports.
So everybody wants to have that cool skin or that cool color or style.
All types of games have loot boxes and skins.
It's the same dopamine hit where you're opening cards, you're trying to get the $300 Pokemon in that set.
Do you see a problem when it comes to teens and gambling?
I could certainly see that crossover. I don't necessarily feel like it's predatory because it's not like you don't have a choice.
Those who treat addicted teens aren't so sure.
Just how that kind of primes the brain. They know what they're doing. They're targeting them.
Taylor Brown is a counselor with Midwest Recovery Center. He says for many of his clients, problem gambling starts with video games.
Whether it's one or the other, first or second, they're very similar. They're trying to get you excited. They're trying to fire dopamine.
How serious is this crisis?
When you're putting casino-like reward systems in a young person's pocket with a brain that hasn't developed, that's a very dangerous place to be.
Brown says many teens he sees often don't even recognize the problem. And even worse, it's normalized by society.
Well, it was on my Instagram. It was on my Facebook. There's authority figures that say that they're gambling. So it's going to make young kids think that it's safe.
For Matthew, he saw those same posts, heard those same celebrities, and trusted that same lie. It took him more than 2 decades to stop believing it.
I have experienced it as an adult, and it was still had a huge pull on me.
Now, at 3 years clean, Matthew knows to take the bet is to lose.
What would you tell a teen out there who thinks, I'm just having fun?
I would be honest and say that it can be fun. That's the truth.
It's the warning he never had.
There was a lot of pain caused by gambling that I'm sure I could have done without.
Sharon Chen, KCTV5 News.
Yeah, and here are a few signs of gambling addiction. If your teen has extra cash, is withdrawing from family, or performing poorly in school, these could be red flags that you should talk about with them. Incredible coverage there from Sharon. Taking it next to some more local news. A major investment could help UMKC students at the start of a new chapter for Kansas City. A $160 million grant is coming to UMKC to study critical materials. What are critical materials? Well, they're actually the rare ingredients needed for everything from smartphone to military jets. Missouri Senator Josh Hawley says the research will help bring supply chains back to the U.S. and strengthen national security.
Isn't just good for Kansas City, it's good for our country because these are national security issues. So this $160 million will go a long way in setting up Kansas City and those students who are looking for great careers, set them up for success right here at home.
So UMKC is going to use the money over the next 10 years to build out new lab space, support faculty and student research, and partner with industry to turn that research into jobs. Pretty cool if you ask me. $160 million. That can definitely go a long way. Well, we want to take it to some national news headlines. The USS George Washington arrived in the Middle East on Wednesday. Leaders say it was previously planned to send the aircraft carrier to the region in order to relieve the USS Abraham. That vessel has been at sea for an extended deployment due to the Iran war. Its lengthy deployment has sparked concerns among many lawmakers and military families. This is because the crew has reported depleting mental health. The Washington's rotation to the Middle East now leaves the U.S. without an aircraft carrier in the Pacific entirely. And we want to take it next to Alaska. This is a story we just learned about minutes ago. A charter plane crashed in a remote area of western Alaska. All 8 people on board, 2 pilots and 6 passengers died, according to federal aviation and military officials. It was a Cessna 441 and it parted from, here on your screen, Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport. It was bound for Camp Newenham, where only military and approved charter flights are allowed to land. Now, the Air Force said the plane was a civilian contracted flight with 8 personnel on board when it crashed near its destination. Now, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Alaska District said in a statement it was aware and that 2 employees were among the victims. Now, the National Weather Service reports it was foggy at the landing strip around the time of the crash, and the FAA and National Transportation Safety Board will investigate the crash. And going on here, several states are having some cleanup to do this weekend. Severe weather struck the mid-Atlantic with heavy downpours, gusts of wind, and flash flooding. John Lawrence reports.
A dangerous drive in Dover, Delaware, as a tornado tears the roof off a motel.
I heard the train sound. My dad always told me that when you hear a train sound, that's a tornado. And I just bolted into my bathroom.
Significant damage was seen in other parts of the city, with Dover authorities telling residents to not travel unless absolutely necessary.
There was a dumpster outside the house, so all we saw was it flying around. It was actually crazy.
A twister was also spotted in Columbia, Pennsylvania Thursday, and a state of emergency was later declared. This comes after a line of storms dropped heavy rain across the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, including New York City, where rainfall poured through its subway systems.
Now, we have had portions of about 2 to 4 inches already fall across Indiana and Ohio. That may not sound like much, but remember, these are the same areas that had a foot of rain last week. So adding even 2 to 4 inches is just going to increase a lot of those creeks, rivers, and streams to swell up again like they did last week.
More than 29 million people along the I-95 corridor have been under flood watches from southwest Connecticut to tornado-struck Delaware.
It looked like the Twilight Zone out there. It looked crazy. There was a lot of trees down and a lot of branches down.
I'm John Lawrence reporting.
Pretty scary stuff if you ask me. He's the one interview subject mentioned, my daughter always said if you hear what sounds like a train, that could mean a tornado. And she was right. All right, we want to take it to some trending headlines. Ariana Grande will have an expedited discovery process in her lawsuit over leaked music. Court documents indicate that she was granted discovery in the matter this week. Now, the judge says the process is needed to identify defendants. Grande filed a lawsuit last month against an unnamed alleged hacker group. She claims they targeted devices of those close to her, stealing unreleased music and pictures. The lawsuit alleges the individuals profited from selling the content on the dark web. And a Christian metal band is suing demon hunters. Yes, they are suing K-pop demon hunters on Netflix because their name is Demon Hunter. Netflix put the film on its platform in June of last year. The band was formed in 2000. They want Netflix to stop using the phrase K-pop demon hunters in things like music, DVDs, bumper stickers, calendars, and live events. Lawsuit also objects to the company's plans for K-pop Demon Hunters live events and seeks damages and lawyer fees. A representative for Demon Hunter declined to comment, and a Netflix representative said the allegations are without merit and the company intends to fight the suit. All right, guys, taking it to some pretty crazy footage. Next, a city public safety meeting is crashed by Darth Vader and a sheep takes a ride through a car wash on a city bus. Coming up in today's Take a Look at This.
And our final speaker is Darth Vader.
An imposing and infamous figure showed up at a public safety meeting in San Diego, California, bent on addressing a controversial issue with a heavy hand and some heavy breathing.
This council has done well. I am pleased.
A citizen dressed as Darth Vader spoke out during the public comment portion of a public safety committee meeting, theatrically praising the increased usage of flock cameras, a license plate tracking technology that has drawn recent criticism.
The Emperor is a fan of flock, and we must continue utilizing flock technologies so that we can follow and surveil the rebel scum.
While seemingly supportive, Vader's speech was also clearly steeped in satire, drawing chuckles from onlookers.
I need this so I can stalk my ex-girlfriend.
In the end, Vader dropped the Jedi mind tricks and capped his speech with a very clear flock cam criticism.
And how will the people trust this city council when this city council continues to vote for surveillance technology that imprisons them?
Well, if that isn't the Sith Lord calling the kettle black.
Take it away!
Speaking of flocks, a sheep in Germany must have strayed from theirs when they showed up on a city bus and rode it through a car wash. Pics and video were posted by Coesfeld Police and the public bus company RVM, showing the sheep on the bus after authorities say it wandered onto the unlocked vehicle from a nearby pasture. UPI reports it was ID'd by an ear tag and the owner was contacted, but the transport company said while the sheep waited, it took a relaxing ride on the bus through a car wash. Between this guy and those bus boarding goats in Portland, Oregon, it seems public transportation is having itself a wild and woolly social media moment. For Take a Look at This, I'm Jeremy Roth.
You know, every time a farm animal finds its way on public transportation, we always seem to have more questions than answers. All right, guys, we have a couple potential storm threats this evening, but some of us might dodge them entirely. Meteorologist Warren Sears will join us here in just a few minutes to break down what you need to know.